Welcome to Songs Still Stuck in My Head, a celebration of album anniversaries. Today we're 40 years on, not from an album, really just from one song. And when I think about it, what I'm celebrating today is merely a drum solo. Not even a drum solo. They call it a drum break. I think of it as a drum fill. Phil, 40 years on. In the Air Tonight was released in January of 1981 and became huge later in the spring. And still today, when you're with a group and this song comes on and that incredible break happens, you'll see people go crazy. They'll automatically all turn into drummers doing their thing like this. In the Air Tonight has that really cool background keyboard sound, a brooding vocal with Phil's strong and demonstrative voice. Digital drums were a relatively new thing. Still, after 40 years, not much has been done with them. But if you want to hear some creative use of digital drums, I commend you to other pieces of Phil's work, better than this even. Recorded just a few months before this, Genesis album Duke has a song called Duchess on it. And on that song, you'll hear some really creative programming in the background that Phil did, also eventually giving way, like in the Air Tonight, to the acoustic thump of the drums. Great stuff. In addition, from the album Genesis, the song Tonight, Tonight, Tonight slowly builds through the entire long song, almost a 9-minute song, as a matter of fact, before the drums come in at 7-8 minutes and carry you along the rest of the way. The first thing that makes this drum break so extraordinary is, of course, the contrast between the digital drums playing in the background, carrying the song rhythmically along, very musically. You become accustomed to that. You forget there aren't drums in this. It's so subtle. Phil has pieces of his own vocal line echoing, and that echo also happens with the rhythm of the song to keep it pulsating along. The second thing that makes this drum break so extraordinary is compression. Compression was a relatively new device used in recording studios designed to make, frankly, everything louder. Compression takes a signal and brings the quieter sections up to volume while taking off the most offending loud sections and bringing them down. In the end, it means the entire song can be significantly louder, compressed at one end of the scale of loudness than before. If you think that music in the 80s and 90s got too loud, you're not wrong. There was more signal going on to the CD that also allowed us to have more signal on it. Music got louder in the 80s and 90s. The loudness wars, as the engineers called it. The competition was, of course, what you hear from the car next door in traffic, what you hear from your crummy little earbuds or on your Walkman or in a boombox. The louder, the better. It made an impression. It grabs you. So even an acoustic guitar, a quiet flute, some background vocals can be boosted in volume. The odd part is the dynamic range of music in the 80s and 90s became much less because the quiet sections were increased a lot, and the most offending high sections, again, compressed to bring down the total signal. It makes for a tiring listening experience when all your music is in that same high range. Think of a couple of the best songs from the 70s. Stairway to Heaven, Dream On. Those are songs with immense dynamic range from quiet acoustic guitar, flutes, up to the most rockin' guitar solos and drama you can imagine, but would never last in the 80s. We didn't have the capacity. Everything had to be loud, instantly recognizable, instantly grabbable in your face. After the dynamic contrast and after compression, the thing that made this drum break so extraordinary and why it still echoes with us has to do with the gated reverb. Listen to the drum break once again and listen especially for the drum hits, how artificially quickly they decay. Here's an image of a normal sound of anything, a drum hit. Here's what gated reverb does. It unnaturally truncates the decay of the sound, so you can fit more hits together, not competing with one another. Each hit decaying more rapidly, piling together an immense drum sound. Takes up more of the sonic space than anything we had heard before. Hear how quickly that closes. It's an interesting sound, isn't it? It's cool. The result is one of the biggest drum sounds we had ever heard, played dramatically just in the perfect place. Gated reverb was discovered by accident, as a matter of fact. Phil was playing drums on a Peter Gabriel album in another room. And on the control panel in the mixer room is a little button so you can talk back to the recorders, to the vocalist, to the trumpet player, to the drummer. And when that button comes off, it automatically closes down that channel. And that's what was happening when Phil was playing. So Peter was in the mixer room and said, wait a minute, that was a cool drum sound we inadvertently recorded with a button. They went and rewired everything to get that huge, compressed, dynamic sound truncated. The best, and by best I mean worst example of this, is Phil later on recording Sussudio. If there's any song that makes me leap for the channel changer immediately, it is this song. Not because of the arrangement, it's a fun song. Not because of the vocals, Phil's got a great voice. Not because of the horns, I love horns. It's because of the utterly exhausting, in-your-face drum sound. Three hits and I'm done. People have been digging on this drum break for so long, they've been recreating it on TikTok. Still, after 40 years, capturing people's imagination in all sorts of great ways. There's always this. And then, of course, I'll finish with this, the best example of a drum break for the ages still stuck in my head. Thanks for listening.